All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning into When Coffee Meets Tea, the podcast. I am Rob Gerard.
I am Denise Bertolovitz.
How you doing, Denise?
I'm good. I'm doing well. A
You
lot of
correcting
mystery.
yourself again?
Again, we had this conversation, but this is like a mystery podcast.
This is a mystery episode
I
because
am maintaining positivity.
I am
right
not,
now.
I am not telling Denise basically what the topic is. And I think we've talked about this before. We don't ever rehearse. It's not like we do a ton of research. I mean, I don't know what Denise does in her private time. I mean, I have an idea of what she does in her private time, but well, listen.
Assumption. Remember the first three letters
I know,
in assumption.
but when it comes to the preparation of the podcast, but usually we'll throw a topic out there and be like, okay, so our topic for the week is going to be technology, and mental health, kind of thing. But today, I didn't even tell Denise this week what the topic was going to be. So, Denise, what I really wanted to talk about was really building confidence. And I was thinking about building confidence as a topic, and I'm like, this could be kind of boring. But the cool thing I really kind of wrapped from the topic was you can truly learn so many lessons in building confidence based on how you would try to build it with children.
Oh, that's so great.
So
that's very interesting.
I'm going to give you an example. I'm just going to give you an example, right?
Okay.
And if you're trying to raise a confident child, right, they talk about adults modeling that behavior. So basically, don't get upset about mistakes. So that kind of plays off what we talked about on the last episode, right? In the last podcast, when we talked about that common humanity and that self-kindness, right? We talked about how you have to forgive yourself. Don't get upset about the mistake. So think about what that does for building self-confidence in yourself.
That's so... Okay, so I have my positivity, which apparently agrees because I just clanked it against the microphone. So if you're wondering what that noise was, so that was happiness saying
Yes.
it's a great topic.
Yes.
So nice pick. Mystery podcast day here.
Yes.
So I love what you said about the association with children, because that is definitely, we are not born with confidence, right? Confidence is either instilled in us by others or instilled in us by ourselves. And my true opinion is that it's very important that a child is modeled or taught or has a good example of someone who has confidence. Confidence is very different than self-esteem. Confidence is someone who is, you got this, you can do this, you are capable. And again, it is not born in us. That is something that we are built up. So childhood is very important to learn those things, right? Huge difference. Like, I can do it. I'm confident. I got this.
Yeah, and I think, when we talk about don't get upset about mistakes, I think an idea that comes to mind, right, is like fear of failure. And I think fear of failure can keep a lot of people from like stepping out their front door and, and taking on the day.
Absolutely.
It's like, so when, I know that, Paul the intern has been talking about, getting hired in New York City, right, on and really joining a broadcast, and and it's like, even though I would be riddled with anxiety about doing that to an extent, he's kind of stepped out of his comfort zone and he's applying to those places, and because he's not scared of failure.
I'm thinking so much about this as you're talking, and confidence is so, can be built, can be learned, but also can be taken away from us. So it's something that I truly believe that we are not born with. We do have to learn it.
How could it be taken away from us? So are you trying to say that if you, so we're not born with it, you're trying to say if we have built it up over the years, What's a way that it could be taken away from us, you think?
It can be taken away from us in putting ourselves in a place where people do not believe in us. So be careful of who you surround yourself with. Words hurt. Words can make you doubt yourself. Words can make you believe that you can't do things on your own, or so I'm talking about, the emotional wellness, like keep your mental health and your ability to believe in yourself. Place yourself in those environments, because confidence can be taken away from you. It can also be taken away from you through fear. Fear is a huge driver of how you're going to act. And where does fear come from? It comes from our thoughts. So when I also talk about this whole thing in confidence, protect your thoughts. Protect your thoughts, because what you think is what you will act on. So if you are thinking afraid, fear-based, then you're going to act not confident. You're not going to move forward into what it is that you're dreaming or what you want to do. You're not going to want to face it. Whereas if you are thinking, I can do this, I know I can, right? It's 75% thinking, right? 25% action. I know that, I'm thinking all this and now I have to act on this. This is the positive thought. This is the confidence. Now I'm going to act on that confidence. And where do those thoughts come from? They either come from ourself or from others. And that's why we have to be very careful where we place ourselves, who we place ourselves around, what we're doing, what are the environments, and what we're reading, what we're watching, the media, like anything. Make sure it's something that is going to build your life around not being afraid.
Wow.
Moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's some definite great points. But the thing is that, and one thing I think I need to challenge you on or kind of roll with is, it's easy to say, are you the person that thinks negative, or are you the person that thinks positive? And I think that a lot of the people that think negative, they want nothing more than to be that person that thinks positive. They want to be, but it's a lot of times they don't know how to build that confidence, right? It's like they see other people that are confident and they're like, I wish that could be me.
Oh, yeah,
I wish I could do that. So, there's a few things you can do to really try to turn the leaf and be start. It all starts with one step, right? So, they say move a muscle, change a thought. So maybe you need to switch up something in your routine.
Trained behavior. And that's exactly, like, I'll just sum it right up in the term of, nobody wants to be negative. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Some people do enjoy the thrill of it, but that's a whole different episode. But there is a whole concept of trained behavior, and I will say this about my mom. Like, I definitely do lack self-esteem, and I'm working on that as life goes forward. But I have to say, she knew how to teach us confidence.
Wow.
She was like, oh, you can jump off that. You can do that. I mean, she stuck me on a roller coaster when I was like 5, and I was so afraid, and I laugh, like I talk about throwing the baby in the creek. Like, she was like that. She was like, oh, come on. Like,
where was the roller
tough
coaster?
Love.
Was that Riverside?
It was Riverside. Yes, it was
Oh
that
my
little
God,
baby
I
one.
knew
Oh
it.
my
I
gosh.
knew it.
Yeah, Agawam, Massachusetts, Captain Rivy. I still have those pictures. That's funny.
Awesome.
But it's that throwing. She would throw my brother and I into these things, like, oh, you can sing in front of the church in front of 500 people. We were like, what? Or just, she was always putting us in situations that she didn't want us to be afraid. And I'll tell you, she built our confidence because she didn't have that when she was a kid. So but what there was lacking was self-esteem. But that's a totally different episode. But, so let's stick on confidence. And that, again, is, her emphasizing that you can do it, keep putting yourself. And she always used to say, what you think is what will be. What you think is what will be. It's trained behavior.
Well, and let me jump in and say, that is one thing that I admire so much about you, about your mother, and about your family in general. I mean, you are a strong, independent woman, and I think you represent a huge base of our listenership with just, that female perspective. And you are someone that is not afraid to, grab a hammer and start nailing in some nails. You're
I
not
love that.
afraid. You're not afraid to plunge that toilet.
I'm
You
not.
know what I
I'm
mean?
not. You got to get dirty. Sometimes you got to get down and
You got to
dirty.
jump
Like, you
in.
just got to do it. And you have to just, you know what? The greatest lives come after the greatest mistakes. Like, we're all going to make mistakes. Like, my mom always used to say, oh, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, that probably wasn't always a good thing to say, but, you kind of have to think to yourself, okay, maybe A, B, or C could happen, but you know what? What's the worst? Like, let's just try that out.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that. That's a huge compliment, because I do want women to believe in themselves and to know that, you can do anything that you put your heart and your mind to. And the power to believe in yourself is a very magical thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And just the idea of, and vice versa too, right? Like, a real man can cry. A real man knows his way around the kitchen. And I don't know why that kind of thought came to me today, and it just came to me again, like, a real man knows his way around the kitchen, because it's like, I truly love the direction that society has kind of gone in, with just shattering what we kind of perceived the man's role to be and the female's role to be, in life and in the home and in the workplace. I love that, and hopefully we'll continue to evolve, and maybe 50 years from now or 100 years from now, for the better, we will continue to shatter that, perception. But the whole idea of like, any of us can do anything that we want to do. I think the coolest part, though, is just really, like you said, move a muscle, change a thought, and try new things.
And I love that, like, how you're talking about the man's role, the woman's role. It's, I do strongly believe that children need parents, and I don't define that in any particular way, but, two, what is the old saying? Two is better than one. So when you have the presence of both people, let's just say in this particular situation, husband and wife, mom and dad, to the child, there are so many, I really truly believe there are so many pluses to that. So this is how I grew up. I grew up spending time with my father and my mother. That is why I am not afraid to be on a job site. That is why I swing a hammer. That is why I can walk in high heels and look glamorous and be a lady and, the next day shoot a gun. Like, these are the things that, because I had that diversity. And nowadays one parent can even offer that diversity.
Well,
I think I always say, well, I think I would be a great single parent. Like, I have a lot to offer, but it depends on, that person and what it is. Are you afraid to be a single parent? Are you not?
Yeah.
Do you want to be? So
And
we're kind of going off topic, but I thought that was really interesting, and I wanted to add that in there.
I think, from another perspective, I was raised by a single mom, and to me, that's truly made me who I am, and I love that. I wouldn't have traded it for anything. It's not like, looking back on it, I'm like, boy, I really wish I had, it's like, I totally own and love the fact that my mother was my primary person that raised me. My father was kind of somewhere else, but they were divorced by the time I was 2. And I think probably most of our listenership, I would imagine, either A, their parents are divorced, or B, maybe they've experienced a divorce themselves. So, I think in a perfect world, having mom and dad in the house would be great, but I think there's there's more divorces than not. So,
it's so common. And second divorce is what they said, it's even higher.
Shout out to the single moms for sure, because I saw firsthand
and
what
single
my
dads.
mom and single dads, without a
both.
doubt. Can't forget the single dads. But the single mom role, I have clients that I work with that are single moms, and man, talk about a lot of them do. I'm not saying all. I'm not saying all, but a lot of them struggle with confidence, because they're like, okay, you know what? I have 2 kids. I'm working full time, or I'm working 2 jobs. How am I gonna meet a guy, or what guy would want to get into this? Or they're like, I don't care if a guy doesn't want me, oh well, but I think just, it's tough. And I think when you factor in children in the mix, it's trying new things could become increasingly difficult, because sometimes, all our time and energy is just spent making sure home is okay.
It's interesting that you just said that, and I'm going to highlight what you said about a single mom or even a single dad saying, who would want someone who has children? I'm going to tell you this. When someone loves you, it does not matter. It does not matter. And this is where you as a person need to work on your thoughts, because there is someone for everyone. There are people that have children that would want your children, that don't have children that would want to be with you. They're going to love you for you and have your children be a bonus in that relationship. And it's very important what you're thinking, because your thoughts are going to drive what you're attracting. And that goes with confidence, right? So people always say that confidence brings more to you. And I do believe that, but what drives that is your thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's going to bring that to you. And if I'm thinking positive, I'm going to bring more positive. And I also like what you said about how you love the fact you love your mom and you feel that she is why you are who you are today. 100%, no doubt. And I'm also going to kudos you on this and give you 100%, is that I love how you love your life. And I love what you said about, I don't wish anything different, because this is what makes us confident and happy. We cannot wish for, we have to accept the life that we are given in order to make a life better.
Yeah, and to go back to last week's episode, we talked about common humanity, meaning everyone suffers. We all experience suffering, and we don't mean Jesus on the cross suffering, but we mean emotional turmoil, emotional pain. We all experience the death of loved ones and friends and whatnot, but yeah. So to go back to that confidence, it's trying new things, not being afraid to fail, and just trying to always persevere. Because, when I think about teaching kids, it's like, you want to praise that perseverance. And who doesn't want to continue pushing forward? And so if you're like, how do I get out and try to continue pushing forward? Going back to what you've said multiple times, it is truly about who you surround yourself with.
Absolutely. And it's a mindset. And here's the thing too, like, I don't want to podcast this and say, I think that this is so easy, because it's not. And here's the thing is that depression is real. Anxiety is real. PTSD is real.
UFOs are real.
Disorder. I'm trying to think of other type of diagnosis. Like, I'm not a therapist, but it's like you look at all of these things and they can change your confidence and also slow you down. So don't think that we're like, oh, tomorrow you have to just build your confidence and it happens overnight, because confidence building does not happen overnight.
No, and that's a great point. And Denise, one thing I want to really commend you on is you are, and I think if before we wrap this up, if we could truly take anything away from this episode, it would be to always be a work in progress. And about you, Denise, I feel like you are truly always a work in progress, right? Like, you're not perfect, where you fall short, and you are just always saying, I'm working on it, or I'm going to work on it, or I've been doing this, or I've been doing that. And even though you could be a hot mess at times, and I'm not saying me, I'm pointing the finger here, right?
There's no doubt about that.
You are always a work in progress. So I think as long as we continue to be a work in progress, that's huge. And like, I know I speak with a therapist, I have my own therapist, and I'm continuing to work on myself. And, not that confidence is something that I struggle with all the time, but, I'm definitely working on other aspects of my life where I know I'm falling short. So if you don't know where to start when it comes to confidence and self-esteem and self-acceptance, talk to a professional.
And yes, absolutely. Never be afraid to reach out. And it's interesting. I've gone on this whole journey where I lost my confidence. That's why I said confidence can be taken away from you. But remember, in life, nothing is taken away from you unless you allow it. And I allowed that to happen. I allowed to things to happen in my life that, I thought that that was the right thing to do. And, this is love and this is happiness. And, and it just put me down a not healthy road, and it took my confidence away. So I'm rebuilding that confidence along with knowing that I never had self-esteem, and I have to build that along with it. So life is always a building process. It's like you're just one project. That's it.
Yeah.
Think of it as that. When you're managing it, you have more self-awareness. And, I never thought that I would ever be the person that would have major depressive disorder, would have PTSD from trauma after trauma. And I'm not talking, this just happened in one particular situation. This is years of, and when I talk about trauma, I don't want people to be like, wonder what happened to her. Was she sexually abused? Was she, did this horrible thing? No, trauma can be simple things depending on where you're at. You can only take so much trauma. Trauma can be death. Trauma is divorce. Trauma is losing a job. It depends on how your mindset is. That's why it's very important to keep our mind and our body healthy. Because when both are working healthy, then we can handle and we can cope and we can be resilient. But when trauma after trauma, divorce, death, another death, a bad relationship, this just keeps happening, and all these things are happening, and childhood things, and religious things, and guilt and shame and all this, I just couldn't take anymore.
Wow.
And I came to this point where I knew something was wrong. I knew. And you don't cry every day. You don't not sleep. I had insomnia. I still struggle, so PTSD, ADHD I have from childhood. Who would ever think, as I emphasize think, I am an overthinker. And I will tell you that there's two things I've recognized in my life. And that's number one, I have overthought so many things that I've sabotaged myself that could have been really good opportunities for me, and good relationships even. And number two, the biggest thing is that confidence. When I was fearful, every situation, every decision that I ever made that was based on fear, being afraid of something that didn't even happen yet, I destroyed myself. I put myself into sabotage mode, and I gave up good things for myself because I was so afraid that I was going to hurt someone, or I was so afraid that something was going to happen, that person was going to leave me, and I just thought that was going to happen. And that is so important. That's why I keep emphasizing, please, confidence is important. Don't be afraid. Like, what do you think about that? Am I overemphasizing that, do you think?
I think that's what I love about you, Denise, and I think what you bring to this podcast, it's that you are not afraid to truly discuss the journey and the ups and downs that you've experienced. I think we've all experienced to an extent, and it's that common humanity, and through common humanity, we can see that having that real confidence is achievable. Some people could walk into a room and own the room, and then some people can kind of be a wallflower. And I think either way is good with me, as long as you're happy with it.
Yes.
That's all I care about. You could own the room, but hate yourself on the inside, and you could be a wallflower and be completely content and grateful. So it doesn't matter what type of personality you have, I think, as long as you're happy with yourself. And that's what hopefully, we want this podcast to be, right? It's like spreading happiness and self-acceptance.
I love that you said that too. It's like, I want our listeners to know, like, for me and even for them, because they might be thinking, well, I never hated myself. Like, I never hated myself. I was just never taught how to love myself first.
Wow.
How to love myself properly.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. So with that being said, we are going to wrap up. Special shout out to Candlewood Coffee in Brookfield, Connecticut for Robbie's Roast and Denise's Positivity. Definitely check us out. However you're listening to us, whether if it's on iTunes podcast or on Spotify. You could also check out Denise's. She has a new OnlyFans page. So definitely.
Because you always got to be the wise apple. I'm just going to say wise ass.
No, definitely go to Instagram and go to our link tree, which is our link in our bio. You click on that, and that brings you to all our different links. So definitely do that. Big shout out to Paul, the intern, for being here today. Thank you very much. And Paul's got his own podcast that he does, and it's phenomenal. And he's continuing to grow, and yeah, definitely check him out. So with that being said, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm Rob Gerard.
I'm Denise Bertolowitz.
Have a good one.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out other episodes of our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else podcasts are streamed. Find us on Instagram at When Coffee Meets Tea Podcast or www.whencoffeemeetstea.com. Rob and Denise want to thank the listeners.